not ambitious enough," my fiancée told me right before announcing her engagement to my best friend. I let her think she'd won, but at their wedding, karma handled the vows. All right, Reddit, get ready for a wild ride. This story happened about 2 years ago, and I'm finally ready to share everything. Names changed, of course, but the drama is 100% real. This involves my ex-fiancée who thought she walked on water, my former best friend who couldn't keep his loyalty intact, and a wedding that crashed and burned spectacularly. I'm Mason, 31, and I own a custom furniture design business in Portland. I started as a 19-year-old apprentice, making $11 an hour, busted my ass for years, and eventually bought the shop when my mentor decided to retire. I now have 12 craftspeople on staff, and we create high-end pieces for luxury homes, boutique hotels, and upscale restaurants. The journey wasn't easy. There were countless nights spent sleeping on a cot in my workshop, calloused hands that bled from sanding wood for 14 hours straight, and 3 separate occasions when I nearly lost everything because clients didn't pay on time. But determination and an unwavering commitment to quality carried me through the darkest times. This story centers on 2 people I once trusted completely. Vanessa was my fiancée of 4 years. Brunette, polished, worked in architectural design, which basically meant she drew beautiful buildings and acted like she was reinventing civilization. We met when she was consulting on a restaurant I was furnishing. The restaurant owner had commissioned a series of handcrafted tables that would complement the exposed brick and industrial aesthetic of the space. Vanessa walked in during installation, clipboard in hand, designer glasses perched on her nose, and immediately began questioning my choice of wood grain direction. Our argument evolved into a dinner debate, which somehow transformed into a relationship that lasted 4 years. She had that expensive look that screams high maintenance, but I didn't care because, well, she was breathtaking. Then there's Ryan, my friend since freshman year of college when we were randomly assigned as roommates. We both studied design. I focused on furniture craftsmanship. He went into landscape architecture. Our friendship survived all-night study sessions, dating disasters, and that one spring break where we drove across 3 states with nothing but $50 and a broken GPS. We'd collaborate on projects, share clients, meet for beers every Thursday. The guy was supposed to be like a brother to me. Through the years, we'd supported each other through professional setbacks and celebrated victories together. When my father passed away unexpectedly during my 2nd year of business ownership, Ryan was the one who showed up at my workshop with food, handled customer calls, and simply sat with me during those first devastating nights of grief. My first 3 years with Vanessa were solid. She'd brag to her friends about being engaged to a visionary artisan, her words, and show off photos of the intricate tables and chairs I'd created. There was genuine pride in her voice when she'd described the commission I'd received from that tech billionaire who wanted a conference table made from a single 300-year-old fallen redwood. We discussed wedding plans, buying property together, the whole future. I was proud of what I'd built, and she seemed proud to be marrying me. She had expensive taste, but claimed her firm paid her what she was worth. Her career was on an upward trajectory. High-end residential projects, boutique commercial spaces, luxury renovations for tech executives and old money families. I admired her dedication, even when it meant working late nights and taking emergency calls during our date nights. During one particularly memorable anniversary dinner, she received 3 separate calls from a demanding client who was renovating a historic mansion. Instead of being annoyed, I found myself impressed by her professional composure and problem-solving abilities. That night ended with champagne on our apartment balcony as she sketched redesigns while I massaged her shoulders. A perfect encapsulation of what I thought our partnership represented. Ryan was thriving too. Started his landscape design firm around the same time I bought my shop. We'd hit our favorite brew pub every Thursday, compare business stories, plan hiking trips. Vanessa would join us sometimes, and she always seemed really interested in Ryan's business approach. "Ryan's always innovating," she'd say after he left. "It's impressive how he thinks about growth opportunities." I figured she was just interested since she was building her career too. Made sense that she'd want to understand different approaches to creative businesses. What I didn't realize was that she was already comparing us, and I was losing points for reasons I couldn't see yet. The comments started subtly. You could probably charge more if you invested in better marketing. Or, Ryan mentioned this designer networking group. Might be worth looking into. Still seems supportive. She wanted me to succeed, right? Wrong. See, here's the thing about women like Vanessa. They're never actually satisfied with what you've built. They always need you to be building something more impressive to show off to their friends. A successful artisan workshop isn't enough. It needs to be a rapidly expanding design empire, or you're not reaching your potential. The constant dissatisfaction creates an exhausting dynamic where validation becomes increasingly difficult to achieve, moving perpetually beyond reach like a desert mirage that promises water but delivers only more scorching sand. The first real warning came at a dinner party with her work crowd. 8 couples, all architectural types, designers, property developers, some couple who owned a string of boutique hotels. I was the only one who actually created things with his hands, which apparently made me the evening's curiosity. Throughout the meal, I noticed subtle exchanges between Vanessa and her colleagues, shared glances when I mentioned workshop challenges, barely concealed winces when I discussed the merits of traditional joinery techniques versus modern shortcuts. When people asked what I did, Vanessa introduced me as Mason. He makes furniture. Not he owns a custom furniture design business, or he's a master craftsman with his own company. During dinner, someone brought up an article about artisans making serious money these days. Finally, something I could actually contribute to. Mason could speak to that, Vanessa said. He does really well for someone in crafts. Like I was punching above my weight just by sitting at their table. The conversation quickly moved to someone's recent vacation in Portugal, and I found myself relegated to nodding and smiling while my engagement to Vanessa suddenly felt like an anthropological experiment. The educated architect slumming with the guy who worked with his hands. The drive home featured a symphony of strained silence, occasionally punctuated by Vanessa's enthusiastic recounting of architectural discussions that had excluded me entirely. I let it slide that night, but it stuck with me. That's when I started paying attention to her patterns. And what I found was far worse than I thought. She'd steer conversations away from my design awards and towards Ryan's expansion plans. She'd mention my work to friends only in the context of how different it was from their careers. She treated my expertise like a party trick instead of professional knowledge. But the real kicker, she'd complain about her architectural deadlines to me, then tell her friends how much more complex and demanding her job was compared to making tables. I should have called off the engagement right then, but I was thinking with the wrong head and making classic mistakes. That's why you should never ignore red flags, folks. They're always waving for a reason. The breaking point was 4th of July weekend. She planned a barbecue at my place. About 25 people from her firm, plus my crew. I spent the afternoon grilling, making sure everyone had drinks, playing perfect host while she networked and took credit for organizing everything. My workshop manager, Daniel, pulled me aside during the party. "Everything okay with you and Vanessa?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. When I assured him things were fine, he gave me a look that conveyed both skepticism and sympathy before squeezing my shoulder and walking away. That moment should have prompted deeper reflection, but sometimes we choose blindness when sight reveals truths we aren't prepared to confront. Around sunset, I was cleaning up the kitchen when I overheard her talking to her friends on the deck. "Mason is great, but he's very content," she was saying. "Like, he's found his groove and he's comfortable, staying there. Ryan's always pushing boundaries, looking for the next big opportunity." "Is that a problem?" someone asked. "Not a problem exactly. Just different mindsets about life. Some people are satisfied with steady success, and some people want to build something revolutionary." I stood there holding plates, listening to my fiancée explain to her friends why I was acceptable for now, but not husband material. The tone wasn't mean. It was worse. It was dismissive. "I love him," she continued, "but sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who really challenges himself, someone with a bigger vision for the future." The plates in my hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy, as though the weight of her words had transferred into physical form. My throat constricted with a potent mixture of anger and humiliation. Here was the woman who had supposedly chosen to spend her life with me, systematically diminishing me to her social circle. The casual cruelty of her assessment penetrated deeper than any direct insult could have. It wasn't that she thought I lacked ambition. It was that she felt comfortable enough in her superiority to express this view openly, assuming I would never learn about it. That night, after everyone left, I called her out. "I heard what you said about me being content to your friends." She looked genuinely surprised, like she couldn't believe I'd been listening to her public performance review of our engagement. "Come on, I wasn't being negative. You are content with yourself, your business, your life. That's not necessarily bad. The way you said it made it sound like settling." "I'm not settling, Mason. I love you. I just think you could push yourself more if you wanted to." "Push myself toward what?" She didn't have an answer. What she really wanted apparently was already coming by every Thursday and feeding her fantasies about innovative design approaches. I went to bed that night with an uncomfortable realization forming in my mind. The woman I planned to marry viewed me as a project with diminishing returns. For the first time since our engagement, I found myself questioning whether our relationship had ever been based on genuine respect or merely on her temporary fascination with my world. A fascination that was evidently wearing thin. Sleep evaded me as I stared at the ceiling, Vanessa's breathing beside me steady and untroubled, while my thoughts churned with increasing turbulence. Summer hit and Vanessa's career exploded. Bigger projects, longer hours, more stress. She'd come home exhausted, complaining about demanding clients and impossible deadlines. "The Westbrook project wants to change the entire concept 3 weeks before construction begins," she'd vent. "Do they think I can just snap my fingers and redesign everything?" I'd listen, offer support, and try to help her decompress. But these conversations always shifted into subtle comparisons with my work. "At least furniture design is straightforward," and she'd say. "Wood goes here, joints go there. My job requires constant creativity and client management, right?" Because I definitely never dealt with entitled homeowners wanting to change designs after materials were ordered or contractors blaming me for their scheduling mishaps. During one particularly heated evening, I finally pushed back against this narrative. "You realize I redesigned that restaurant's entire seating concept last month when their chef decided they needed more floor space, right? Had to scrap 3 weeks of work and start over with sustainable materials that weren't even available locally." Vanessa looked genuinely surprised, as though the complexity of my professional challenges had never occurred to her. "That's different," she insisted after a pause. "You're working with physical objects. I'm juggling abstract concepts, municipal codes, client psychology, and architectural integrity simultaneously." The dismissal stung precisely because it revealed how little she understood or valued what I did. The realization that she might never truly respect my craft cast a shadow over our relationship that grew longer with each passing day. Ryan started coming around more during this period. He'd stop by when I was still at the shop, supposedly to hang with both of us, but increasingly just to talk design philosophy with Vanessa. She'd give me detailed reports over dinner. "Ryan's expanding into commercial public spaces," she'd announce. "He's already talked to 3 potential investors about partnership opportunities." Good for him. He's looking at international projects, building relationships with hotel developers. It's impressive how he approaches growth. That excitement in her voice when she talked about Ryan's plans, completely different energy from when she discussed mine. His strategies were visionary and innovative. Mine were apparently just staying busy and maintaining quality. Around this time, Vanessa launched her improvement campaign. Maybe I should hire a marketing consultant. Maybe I should look into restaurant chains instead of independent establishments. Maybe I should join design organizations, network more aggressively. "Ryan's making connections that are really paying off," she'd say. "You could learn from his approach to building relationships." Never mind that my focus on independent restaurants and homeowners was intentional. I liked working with clients who appreciated craftsmanship, took pride in custom solutions, and made excellent money without the headaches of corporate bidding wars. But Vanessa saw contentment as weakness. "I'm not saying change everything," she'd clarify when I pushed back. "Just think bigger. You're capable of so much more." This became her favorite phrase, repeated with the practiced patience of someone explaining a simple concept to a child who refuses to understand. The condescension cut deeper than outright criticism would have. At least criticism acknowledges capability. Condescension assumes its absence. My response was indirect but significant. Rather than engaging in circular arguments about ambition, I channeled my energy into an especially challenging commission. A music room for a retired concert pianist featuring acoustic enhancements built directly into the furniture design. The project demanded extensive research into sound dynamics and required collaboration with an acoustical engineer. Working late into the night became my refuge from Vanessa's increasingly critical presence. When the completed room was featured in a prestigious design magazine, I brought the article home, seeking validation I shouldn't have needed. Vanessa glanced at it briefly before returning to her own work. "Nice," she said without looking up again. "You should leverage this exposure into something bigger." The gap between us widened with every conversation that missed its mark. The final straw came on a Thursday night in late June. We were supposed to have dinner together, but she called around 5 p.m., saying she had a client emergency. Some property developer's presentation materials were missing, and she needed to recreate them for a weekend meeting. "Sorry, babe. This could take hours. Rain check on dinner?" "No problem. These things happen." I grabbed takeout and a beer, planning a quiet night catching up on design sketches. Around 8 p.m., I got a text from my friend Kevin. "Dude, I saw Vanessa and Ryan at Highwater earlier. Figured you were working late or something." Highwater, the upscale seafood place downtown where Vanessa loved going for business dinners, 20 minutes from the office where she was supposedly handling a materials crisis. I sat there staring at that text for a solid 5 minutes. Either Kevin was mistaken about who he saw, or my fiancée was lying about her emergency. The message carried the weight of a boulder, settling heavily in my stomach. My hands grew cold as scenarios raced through my mind. Could Kevin be mistaken? Portland had plenty of brunettes with similar builds to Vanessa, but Highwater was her favorite restaurant, and the coincidence seemed too precise. I considered calling her immediately but restrained myself. Accusations made in haste could be easily dismissed. Evidence gathered methodically would be harder to explain away. Given her recent pattern of praising Ryan's business acumen and finding excuses to discuss his strategies, I was starting to suspect it wasn't mistaken identity. When she got home around 11 p.m., she was full of stories about the presentation disaster. The printer completely mangled the materials, and I had to rebuild everything from scratch, she said while getting ready for bed. What was actually wrong with the printer? Some kind of technical issue, very complex problem beyond what I'd understand. Her explanation came too readily, too rehearsed. The details were simultaneously specific enough to sound legitimate, but vague enough to prevent verification. As she continued describing her evening of professional heroics, I observed her with new awareness. The slight flush on her cheeks wasn't from stress, but from wine. The particular Cabernet Highwater was known for. The perfume lingering on her wasn't her usual scent, but something fresher, applied recently. Most telling was how she maintained eye contact throughout her story, an unconscious overcompensation common to those constructing falsehoods. My professional experience with clients who suddenly wanted to change designs without paying additional costs had made me attuned to the subtle markers of deception. I didn't confront her that night, but I started paying closer attention to inconsistencies in her stories and Ryan's casual mentions of running into her around town. 2 weeks later, same pattern. She had a client meeting Wednesday afternoon that ran late. Ryan mentioned grabbing coffee downtown that same Wednesday and bumping into Vanessa at some cafe. "Small world," he said. "We ended up sharing a table since the place was packed." Maybe it was a coincidence. Portland isn't huge, and there are only so many places where design professionals eat lunch. But twice in a month felt like a pattern, especially when Vanessa never mentioned these random encounters. The following weekend brought another revealing moment. During a community fundraiser for arts education, several colleagues congratulated Vanessa on securing the Thompson Cultural Center project, a significant commission I hadn't heard her mention. When I inquired about it later, she seemed momentarily flustered before explaining she'd been keeping it quiet until contracts were finalized. "Besides," she added with a casual dismissiveness that had become familiar, "it's complicated urban planning stuff that wouldn't interest you." The explanation was reasonable enough, but her instinct to assume my disinterest rather than share her success spoke volumes about how she viewed our relationship. I started documenting these coincidences without making it obvious, just normal awareness of details that didn't add up. The smoking gun came Labor Day weekend. She said she had to work Saturday. Emergency with a hotel lobby design. The owner was threatening to pull the contract if everything wasn't perfect by Monday's presentation. I offered to help. Design visualization is literally my specialty. Thanks, but the firm has their own people, she said. You should enjoy your day off. Fair enough. I spent Saturday refinishing a walnut dining table and updating project schedules. Around 3:01 p.m., I needed a specific tool for Monday's job. My backup was in storage, but I remembered seeing what I needed at Ryan's workshop earlier in the week. His studio is in an industrial area north of town, not exactly on the way to anywhere, especially not architectural firms. I pulled into the lot and immediately spotted Vanessa's black Tesla parked behind the building, back where employees park, hidden from street view. The sight hit me like a physical blow. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. Despite the warm September air, a chill spread through me as the reality of their betrayal crystallized. This wasn't a casual lunch between friends or colleagues discussing business. The deliberate concealment of her car revealed premeditation and awareness of wrongdoing. Years of friendship and love reduced to clandestine meetings and elaborate lies. I sat in my truck processing what I was seeing. My fiancée was supposed to be handling a design crisis across town. Instead, her car was tucked behind my best friend's business, like she didn't want anyone seeing it there. The design emergency was apparently happening in Ryan's studio. What a remarkable coincidence. I could have stormed inside and forced everything into the open right there. Instead, I took photos with timestamps and location data, then drove home to think. The drive back became a journey through memories, now tainted by suspicion. How long had this been happening? Were there signs I'd missed from the beginning? The engagement ring I'd saved for months to purchase now seemed like an emblem of my naivety rather than our commitment. Each traffic light offered a moment to consider confrontation scenarios, from explosive accusations to quiet ultimatums. By the time I reached home, a strange calm had settled over me. The peculiar clarity that comes when a complex situation suddenly becomes devastatingly simple. That evening, Vanessa came back with elaborate stories about the hotel lobby disaster. The design team you called figured it out? I asked. Yeah, it took most of the afternoon, but we got everything working perfectly. What was the actual issue? Some kind of visualization problem. Really technical stuff. Here's the thing about betrayal. Once you know it's happening, you see it everywhere. Conversations that seem normal suddenly feel loaded with double meanings. Schedule conflicts that seem reasonable now look planned. You realize you've been missing obvious signs. The following week unfolded like a masterclass in deception. Vanessa initiated more physical affection than usual, perhaps compensating for her emotional distance. She suggested weekend trips, proposed dinner with my sister whom she'd previously avoided, and brought up wedding venue options after months of silence on the topic. The transparent nature of these gestures made them more painful than comforting, like watching an actress perform caring behaviors without authentic emotion behind them. I spent the next month documenting everything without changing my behavior. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening. The answer was worse than I'd imagined. They'd been carrying on for at least 4 months. The design consultations, coincidental coffee meetings, emergency weekend calls, all garbage cover stories for whatever they were doing behind my back. During this investigation period, I discovered several troubling details. Ryan had recently begun highlighting Vanessa's contributions on his professional social media accounts, crediting her with design consultation on projects where her involvement seemed unnecessary. Their supposed accidental meetings always occurred at restaurants with secluded seating areas or private rooms. Most damning, Ryan had started canceling our Thursday tradition with increasingly elaborate excuses, only for Kevin to spot him and Vanessa at various locations across town during those same evenings. The systematic dismantling of our friendship occurred alongside the unraveling of my engagement, a coordinated betrayal that revealed extensive planning. The betrayal hurt, obviously, but what really angered me was the disrespect. They thought I was too stupid or trusting to figure it out. I could have confronted them immediately. Instead, I decided to let them think they were getting away with it while I prepared my own plan. Sometimes the best approach is letting your enemies think they're winning until you're ready to flip the board completely. September brought my busiest season ever. Word was spreading about the custom statement pieces I'd been creating, and referrals were pouring in from clients who appreciated quality craftsmanship. Booked solid through April, with a waiting list forming for summer projects. I landed a massive contract, complete furniture design for a new luxury hotel chain, $250,000 project that would establish me as the go-to artisan for high-end commercial work. The hotel commission arrived through an unexpected connection. A wealthy couple whose dining table I had crafted the previous year recommended me to a developer friend launching a boutique hotel concept. The initial meeting transformed into a comprehensive proposal for custom furnishing throughout the property, from lobby seating to guest room pieces, each designed to complement the building's architectural narrative while providing functional luxury. The contract represented more than financial security. It validated my business philosophy of quality over quantity, craftsmanship over mass production. This professional milestone arrived precisely when my personal life was crumbling, creating a strange juxtaposition of professional achievement and emotional devastation. Vanessa noticed the increased business, but instead of excitement about my success, she seemed almost annoyed by it. "You're working constantly now," she observed while I updated project schedules. "Good problem to have. This is how you build something lasting, I suppose. Just seems like you're always focused on the next piece instead of long-term vision." "What do you mean?" "Brand expansion, building partnerships with other designers, thinking about scalability instead of just taking whatever commissions come in." She was parroting Ryan's business philosophy word for word. His landscape company was growing fast. New employees, talks about a second location, bigger commercial contracts. Meanwhile, they were getting bolder about their secret meetings. Vanessa worked late more often, always with plausible explanations about difficult clients or design emergencies. Ryan found excuses to stop by when I wasn't home, supposedly borrowing tools or discussing potential joint projects that never materialized. One afternoon, I returned home unexpectedly after a client canceled, only to find Ryan's jacket draped casually over our living room chair. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen, momentarily startled before explaining that Ryan had dropped off some design magazines featuring his latest project and stayed for coffee. When I asked where he was now, she claimed he'd just left, yet his jacket remained, and 2 wine glasses sat half empty on the coffee table. The brazenness suggested they no longer feared discovery, or perhaps believed my suspicions wouldn't matter if raised. The calculated risk they were taking with my trust transformed from hurtful to insulting. I started having casual conversations with people in my professional network, normal relationship maintenance, but I made sure clients and other craftspeople knew I was reliable, trustworthy, the guy who delivered quality work on time and under budget. Reputation matters in the design world, and I wanted to be positioned well for whatever came next. My first priority was protecting my business assets. I went through every shared account and client contact, making sure Vanessa couldn't access anything that could damage my company. Changed passwords, updated bank authorizations, secured customer databases, and vendor relationships. If this was going nuclear, my livelihood wasn't going down with the engagement. Second, I documented everything about our shared life. Photos of her contributions to the house, receipts for gifts, vacation records, even utility bills. I wanted zero ambiguity about what belonged to whom. Through careful observation, I started understanding their pattern. They had been carrying on for months, building emotional intimacy while maintaining the facade of casual friendship. But they were planning something bigger than just messing around behind my back. I could feel it in how they acted when all 3 of us were together. Too much eye contact, too many inside jokes, too much familiarity disguised as normal friendship. They were building towards something. Then one day early September, she suggested a romantic weekend getaway. Just us, somewhere beautiful to reconnect after our busy summer schedules. "We've both been so focused on work," she said. "It would be good to spend quality time together and really talk about where we're headed." I agreed enthusiastically, suggested coastal towns, maybe somewhere with hiking and good restaurants. She seemed pleased I was interested in planning something special. What she didn't know was that I'd figured out her strategy completely. A romantic weekend would be The perfect setup for a guilt-free breakup conversation. She'd create this intimate setting, then explain how she'd been thinking about our engagement and felt like we'd grown apart. She'd be gentle about it, emphasize that nobody was at fault. We just wanted different things. She'd always care about me but felt we needed to be honest about our compatibility. Make it seem like a mutual decision by two mature adults who recognize their differences. Then after an appropriate mourning period, she'd start dating Ryan publicly. Their relationship would seem natural. Two people finding comfort in each other after difficult breakups. They'd probably tell people how their friendship had slowly developed into something deeper during this challenging time. Clean, minimal social drama. Very Vanessa. I played along enthusiastically, discussing weekend options while privately planning my own approach. If she wanted to control the narrative, I'd let her think she was succeeding right until the moment I revealed how much I actually knew. The days leading up to our weekend getaway developed a surreal quality. We functioned like actors in a play, performing the roles of engaged couple while both privately planning different endings to the story. The cognitive dissonance created moments of unexpected poignancy. Watching her select outfits for our trip, knowing she was strategizing how to leave me most efficiently. Discussing coastal restaurants where she would likely deliver her carefully rehearsed speech about growing apart. Sharing our bed while emotional walls between us thickened with each passing night. The elaborate charade might have been almost admirable in its complexity if it weren't so fundamentally dishonest. But first, I needed more information about what they were really planning. One evening in mid-September, Ryan stopped by to return some chisels he'd borrowed. Vanessa was working late again, so it was just us drinking beers on my deck. "You and Vanessa seem solid," he said out of nowhere. "Yeah, things are good. Why do you ask?" "Just wondering. You guys ever talk about the wedding timeline?" Interesting question from someone who was supposedly just my friend. Why would he care about my wedding plans unless he had other ideas involving my fiancé? "We've discussed it. Probably sometime in the next year or so." "That's cool. She seems like the type who'd want the whole traditional wedding thing. You thinking about settling down anytime soon?" I asked. "Maybe if I found the right person, someone who really understands the design business, you know?" "That's important." I agreed being with someone who gets your ambitions is crucial. "Exactly. Like you're happy with your business the way it is, which is great. But some people need partners who are always pushing for more." And there it was. Ryan had been listening to Vanessa's complaints about my limited ambitions and agreeing with her assessment. Watching Ryan sitting on my deck, drinking my beer and implicitly criticizing my approach to life while actively undermining my relationship created an almost out-of-body experience. The sheer audacity required to maintain such duplicity while presenting himself as concerned friend was breathtaking. I observed him with clinical detachment, noting the practiced casualness with which he delivered statements clearly designed to validate Vanessa's decision to leave me. The calculated nature of their betrayal, not just the affair but the construction of a narrative justifying it, revealed a deeper level of deception than I had initially recognized. The conversation continued for another hour, but I'd heard enough. They weren't just messing around. They were planning a future together. They'd convinced themselves they were more compatible, more aligned in their goals, better suited for each other than Vanessa and I were, which meant they were about to make this my problem in a very public way. Time to finish preparing my response. Columbus Day weekend, Vanessa made her move exactly like I predicted, suggested that romantic getaway we discussed. Drive up to Cannon Beach, nice hotel, hiking, and quality time away from work distractions. "Just us," she emphasized. "No phones, no client calls, just focusing on each other." I agreed immediately, said I'd been looking forward to uninterrupted time together after our crazy summer schedules. Thursday night before we left, Ryan stopped by for what he said was a quick drink to wish us a good trip, but the visit felt different, like he was there for a specific purpose. The three of us sat on my deck making small talk about work and weekend plans, but I could feel the tension underneath. They both seemed nervous. "You guys have something really special," Ryan said at one point, which felt like the most awkward possible thing to say under the circumstances. "We do," Vanessa agreed, taking my hand. "This weekend will be perfect for reconnecting." After Ryan left, Vanessa was unusually affectionate, cuddled up next to me on the couch, talked about how much she was looking forward to our trip, mentioned specific restaurants she'd researched and trails she wanted to hike. It felt like performance art. That night, lying next to her while she slept, I realized this was probably our last night together as an engaged couple. Tomorrow she'd end our engagement, and by next week she'd be with Ryan. 4 years would be over, my best friend would be gone, and I'd be starting fresh. The realization should have devastated me. Instead, it brought an unexpected sense of clarity. The woman sleeping beside me wasn't the partner I had believed her to be, and the friendship I valued had been built on shifting sand. The impending dissolution of these relationships represented not just an ending, but a correction, a realignment of reality with truth. Morning would bring the final act of a play that had been running far too long, and despite the pain involved, there was relief in knowing the curtain would soon fall. I should have felt sadder about it, but mostly I felt relieved. The uncertainty and pretending were almost over, and I could stop acting like I didn't know what was happening. Friday morning, we loaded up and headed toward the coast. Vanessa seemed excited, talking about the itinerary she'd planned and how nice it would be to focus on just us for the weekend. We checked into this expensive resort around noon, grabbed lunch downtown, spent the afternoon walking on the beach, looking at galleries and tourist shops. The coastal afternoon unfolded with picture-perfect weather, sunlight sparkling across the Pacific, waves creating a soothing soundtrack to our beach walk. Vanessa took numerous photos, positioning us against scenic backdrops and orchestrating moments that appeared genuinely romantic. I wondered briefly if these images were intended as the final documentation of our relationship, digital evidence that we had tried to reconnect before the inevitable separation. The thought brought a grim amusement. Even our ending was being carefully curated for optimal presentation. Dinner was when she made her play. Expensive restaurant, romantic lighting, the whole thing. "Mason, I've been thinking about us lately," she said over dessert, "about what we both want from life and whether we're still headed in the same direction. Here we go. I love you and I know you love me, but I feel like we've grown apart this year. We want different things now." I nodded like this was shocking news that had never occurred to me. "You're content with what you've built, and that's wonderful. You've created something stable and successful, but I need someone who shares my ambitions, someone who wants to constantly grow and challenge themselves." "What exactly are you saying?" "I think we should break up. Call off the engagement." She said it gently, reaching across to take my hand like she was delivering tragic news. I know it's hard to hear, but I think we both know we've grown in different directions. We want fundamentally different things from our careers and our lives. I sat there for a moment, acting like I was processing this unexpected development. "You know what? You're absolutely right," I said finally. She looked surprised, like she'd expected more resistance or emotional drama. "I love you too, Vanessa, but I think we've been staying together out of habit more than genuine compatibility." Relief flooded her face. This was going even smoother than she'd planned. "I'm glad you understand. I was worried you'd be angry or try to change my mind." "I'm not angry. I appreciate you being honest about how you feel." Her expression transformed from concerned deliverer of difficult news to relieved recipient of unexpected understanding. The carefully prepared justifications and emotional management strategies remained unused as I accepted the breakup without protest. I could almost see her mentally adjusting her narrative. Perhaps I had been sensing the same incompatibility. Perhaps this truly was mutual recognition of irreconcilable differences rather than her abandonment of our relationship for someone she deemed more suitable. The rewriting of history was beginning already, constructing a version of events where neither party bore responsibility for failure. We finished dessert, went back to the hotel, and had one last night together as an engaged couple. Saturday morning, we drove home in comfortable silence. She moved her stuff out that afternoon, taking only what was clearly hers. No drama, no arguments, no demands for shared property. "I hope we can stay friends," she said while loading the last box. "I'm sure we'll see each other around," I replied. "Small town and all." After she left, I cracked a beer and started making some phone calls. Had some information to share with people who deserved to know what kind of business partners they were dealing with. Time to let Ryan's professional network know exactly what they were getting into. 3 months after our breakup, Vanessa and Ryan announced their engagement. What a beautiful love story. Their romance had blossomed so quickly after they'd both moved on from previous relationships. Pure coincidence that they'd found each other during their respective single periods. They scheduled the wedding for Valentine's Day at some expensive venue outside Portland. Big production, 300 guests, professional everything. Vanessa's event planning background meant it would be flawlessly coordinated and Instagram perfect. I wasn't invited, obviously, but small-town design networks meant I wasn't disconnected from what was happening either. See, while they'd been focused on their secret romance, I'd been building relationships within the broader design community. The artisan world is tight-knit, especially at the commercial level, where reputation matters more than lowest bid. Word travels fast about who delivers quality work and who cuts corners. Ryan's rapid business growth had come with some serious problems that were starting to surface. He'd been underbidding jobs to win contracts, then cutting corners on materials and labor to maintain profit margins. His work was getting sloppy, and complaints were circulating among property developers. I didn't spread gossip or badmouth his business directly. Didn't need to. Poor work speaks for itself, and designers talk to each other constantly about who to hire and who to avoid for future projects. 2 weeks before the wedding, Josh called me, a developer who'd worked with Ryan on several commercial projects over the past year. "You know your ex-buddy Ryan Mitchell?" Josh asked. "We're not close anymore." Good thing, because his landscape work is turning into a nightmare. The installation he did last month is completely failing. Plants dying, irrigation system malfunctioning. The whole thing needs to be torn out and redone. "That's rough, man. Gets worse." Found out he's got similar problems on 4 other projects around town. Word's spreading fast in the development community. Nobody's going to hire him after this gets out. Perfect timing. His business was about to implode right as he and Vanessa started their expensive married life together. But that wasn't even the best part. Vanessa had been so focused on planning her perfect wedding that she'd completely neglected her own business. Spent months coordinating her own event instead of serving existing clients. Several major contracts fell through because she was distracted and missing deadlines. Architectural clients don't appreciate designers who are too busy planning their own parties. Her reputation for reliability was taking serious damage, just as she was about to need steady income more than ever. The wedding itself was beautiful from what I heard through mutual friends. Perfect flowers, elegant venue, expensive catering, everything Vanessa had dreamed about since she was a little girl. Until the reception. Apparently, Ryan had quite a few drinks during dinner and decided to make an impromptu speech about their love story. Started telling everyone how grateful he was that fate had brought him and Vanessa together, how they'd supported each other through difficult times, how their connection had grown slowly over many months of friendship. The problem was his timeline didn't match the story they'd been telling people. He was describing conversations and relationship milestones that dated back to when Vanessa and I were still engaged. Ryan's intoxicated honesty made it crystal clear that their relationship had started long before our mutual breakup. Several people at the reception had been friends with both Vanessa and me. They knew exactly when we'd broken our engagement, and they could do basic math. Ryan's rambling speech revealed that he and Vanessa had been involved at minimum for months before our engagement ended. The reception got uncomfortable fast. People started whispering, connecting dots they'd previously overlooked. By the end of the night, everyone understood that my ex-fiancé had been carrying on with my best friend behind my back, then orchestrated our breakup to cover her tracks. Within a week, the story had spread through our entire social circle and professional community. Vanessa's reputation as someone who could be trusted with important design projects was completely destroyed. Ryan's credibility was shot too. If he'd lied to his best friend for months, what would he do to business partners? Combined with his mounting business failures, they were facing professional and social ruin simultaneously, and I was just getting warmed up. Fast forward 18 months. I'm sitting in this upscale wine bar downtown with Olivia, my new girlfriend. We're celebrating because I just landed a $320,000 contract for complete furniture design on a luxury hotel chain expanding nationwide. Olivia is everything Vanessa wasn't. Brilliant, loyal, successful in her own right, and has zero patience for games or drama. She owns an interior design studio focusing on sustainable luxury and makes more money than most corporate executives. We're halfway through dinner when Vanessa appears at our table like a ghost from my past. She looks like she's been living on caffeine and desperation for months. Hair unwashed, makeup smeared, wearing clothes that scream clearance rack at Target. Mason, I need to talk to you in private. Olivia raises an eyebrow but stays perfectly calm. And you are? Olivia asks. Vanessa, his ex-fiancée. Ah, Olivia says, taking a deliberate sip of her expensive wine. The one who cheated. How interesting. Vanessa's face goes red, but she pushes forward anyway. Mason, please, just 5 minutes. I've been trying to reach you for months. I've been busy building that empire you said I'd never be capable of. Everything fell apart. Ryan left me for his assistant last month. I'm losing my condo next week. Her voice is getting more frantic. I made the biggest mistake of my life. We were perfect together, Mason. We could be perfect again. Olivia's watching this unfold like premium entertainment, clearly enjoying the desperation on display. Vanessa, you cheated on me for months with my best friend, lied to my face constantly, and manipulated our entire breakup to cover your tracks. What exactly makes you think I'd want you back? Because you loved me. We were engaged. That has to count for something. It counted. Past tense. History. That's when she really notices Olivia for the first time. Takes in the designer dress, the expensive jewelry, the way we're obviously together and successful and happy. By the way, who is this witch? Olivia's expression shifts from amused to deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes right before someone gets demolished. Excuse me? You heard me. How long have you been sleeping with my boyfriend? Your boyfriend? Olivia laughs. Honey, your boyfriend is probably with his assistant right now while you're here begging. This is my boyfriend. Vanessa completely loses whatever composure she walked in with. You think you're better than me? You're just some design groupie who swooped in when I wasn't around. Actually, Olivia says, setting down her glass with precision, I'm an award-winning interior designer who owns a successful studio. I swooped in when you were too stupid to appreciate what you had. Mason, are you seriously going to let this witch talk to me like that? She's defending herself, I say, something I should have done more often when we were engaged. You were never good enough for me anyway. Vanessa's voice carries across the restaurant now. I settled for you. You're just some furniture maker who thinks he's successful because he builds tables for rich people. Olivia leans forward slightly. And yet here you are, literally begging him to take you back. That seems embarrassing. Screw you, you don't know anything. A manager stepped over, hands polite but firm. Folks, let's keep it respectful. If this continues, I'll have to ask you to take it outside. Language, Olivia says sweetly. We're in a nice restaurant. Vanessa turns back to me, switching to full desperation mode. Mason, you know me. She doesn't love you like I did. She's just using you until something better comes along. That's exactly what you did to me, I point out. For Ryan, who turned out to be even worse at running a business than he was at being a loyal friend. This is all your fault, Vanessa screams, loud enough that other diners are staring. You ruined everything. You sabotaged Ryan's business. You turned people against us. Ryan sabotaged himself by doing terrible work and screwing over his clients. I just happen to know the developers who had to fix his mistakes. Olivia's grinning now. Let me understand this. You cheated on him, left him for his best friend. Your husband's business failed because he was incompetent, and somehow that's Mason's fault? You don't know anything about our relationship. I know you betrayed someone who loved you, then came crawling back when your life imploded. That tells me everything about your character. Vanessa lunges forward like she's going to grab Olivia, but Olivia just shifts in her chair. Athletic reflexes versus desperate rage. Would have been a very short fight. You want to try something physical? Olivia asks. Because I've seen your wedding photos on Instagram. You looked beautiful that day. Shame about your intoxicated husband announcing your affair timeline to 300 people. That's when Rachel, one of Vanessa's remaining friends, appears and grabs her arm. Vanessa, stop this right now. You're making a scene. Rachel, tell them I'm not crazy. Tell them what really happened. Rachel looks mortified. I'm so sorry, she says to us. She's been drinking since the divorce. Vanessa, we're leaving now. No, I'm not done. Yes, you absolutely are, Rachel says, physically dragging Vanessa toward the exit. Please enjoy your evening. As they leave, Vanessa screams over her shoulder. This isn't over, Mason. You'll regret this. I seriously doubt that, I call back, raising my glass. The restaurant goes quiet for about 10 seconds before conversations resume. Olivia clinks her glass against mine. Well, that was entertaining. She seems stable. She used to hide the crazy better when she had money and status. We finished dinner in peace, tipped our server extra for the show, and went home to the house we'd bought together 6 months earlier. Through mutual friends, I heard Vanessa moved back with her parents in Seattle and was working at some chain design store. Ryan married his assistant, but that lasted exactly 7 months before she divorced him too. 2 years later, I'm running the most successful custom furniture business in the Pacific Northwest. That hotel project I mentioned led to 5 more commercial contracts worth over $800,000 combined. I've got 24 employees now, and we're booked solid through next year. We run weekly design briefings, and our client satisfaction rate is 99.5%. Design magazines feature our work regularly, and waiting lists for custom pieces stretch 6 months. Olivia and I got married last October in a small ceremony in wine country. 40 people, beautiful setting, absolutely perfect day. No drama, no exes showing up uninvited. Just 2 people who actually know how to treat each other starting their lives together. We bought a house overlooking the Columbia River with views that'll make your jaw drop. We're both thriving professionally and personally. Last week I was installing a custom dining set for this tech executive when my phone rang. Number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. Mason, it's Ryan. I hadn't heard from him in almost 2 years. Last I'd heard through the grapevine, his landscape business had completely collapsed and he was working for someone else's company. What do you want, Ryan? Look, I know I messed up. I know what we did was wrong, but I'm trying to rebuild my life here, and I could really use some work. Thought maybe you might have some projects that need landscape design. The nerve on this guy after betraying our friendship and then destroying his own reputation. He wanted me to throw him work. You're calling me for referrals? I'm desperate, man. The divorce cleaned me out. My business is gone. I'm living in a studio apartment and working for $22 an hour. I made mistakes, but I'm trying to do better. Well, I can't help you, I said. Mason, please. I know I messed up our friendship, but... I hung up and went back to work. I felt nothing about it. That chapter of my life was completely closed. The best revenge isn't making your enemies suffer. It's building a life so good that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Vanessa and Ryan can struggle with the consequences of their choices, while I focus on the future with someone who actually deserves my time and energy. Speaking of the future, Olivia and I are talking about starting our own family soon. She'd be an incredible mother, and I'm excited about raising kids who will understand integrity and craftsmanship from the beginning. If you like this story, please click the hype button. This video deserves to be popular. Have a nice rest.